go ahead and start this meeting. Whoa. I'm actually connecting on my personal cell phone through cellular data.
Oh my gosh.
Modern technology.
Yeah, and hoping that if I disappear, then please let the Vice Mayor take the meeting forward. Okay. Okay, let's call this meeting to order. This is just a work session. Fortunately, it's informal. And so we can be a little bit less formal than we might otherwise be. Members of the council, is there anything that needs to change on the agenda?
I see nothing to change.
Me either.
Okay. How many council members do we have present? Do we have a quorum?
There's 3 plus you, sir.
We have 3.
That is,
Councilmember
that's
Mayor,
awesome.
Councilmember Stowe, and myself.
Fantastic. Okay, then let's go ahead with the first presentation. The Riverdale Park Ethics Commission, John Wells.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Wells. I'm the commissioner for the Riverdale Park Ethics Commission. I just want to thank you for inviting me tonight to be able to speak with you and just provide a brief presentation and update on where we are. The last time we spoke was 2 years ago. It was in person. So tonight I am presenting from the basement of my home. I am wearing a jacket, as you can see, but no tie. So I'm keeping it informal. But nonetheless, I do want to thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak. Our commission has, I think when we first started, we were a new group, but in the last 2 years, we've really taken the opportunity to kind of grow into the positions that we volunteered for and really have taken ownership of it. And we really do take a lot of pride in being able to provide a service to Riverdale Park. So before I get too far ahead of myself, I do want to introduce our members. I don't think they're not available tonight to be able to be present, but our vice chair, Corey Buford, he's been with us since we first started 2 years ago, as well as our commission member, Andrea Huberty, excuse me. We have just introduced a new alternate member, April Ingram. She has been participating over the last few months and has really provided an incredible level of input. And so she's definitely a welcome addition to our group. We are also supported by Frederick Sussman, who is the attorney to our commission. His advice and guidance to our commission is really, we really couldn't do our job without him. And you know, we call him Master Yoda for the level of guidance that he does provide to our commission, but he does so in a manner that's professional and also in the best interest of Riverdale Park. And last but not least, I do want to take just a moment to thank Town Manager John Lestitian, as well as Town Clerk Jessica Barnes for their support and for their help. Honestly, we could not do what we do without them. And we do appreciate all the support that they are able to provide to our commission. So I'm just going to talk, I'm actually going to read directly from our charter, which is the purpose of our commission. And so I know I'm being mindful of the death when I was in the Army by death by PowerPoint. This is the only part of the PowerPoint presentation which I will be reading directly from, since it is codified in law. So our commission is first and foremost to provide regulations relating to conflicts of interest, financial disclosure by the town elected officials, candidates for elective town office, and certain town employees, and lobbying disclosure. In addition, providing for enforcement of the terms of the ordinance and penalties for violations. And last but not least, generally relating to the enactment of new regulations intended to ensure ethical conduct by town officials and employees and appropriate disclosure by candidates for town elective office. So our duties, we do have a variety of duties as it relates to our commission and the work that we do. Our primary responsibility is every year we are required by law to review financial and certify financial disclosure statements of elected officials as well as town officials. We take this very seriously. This is something that is that really encompasses the bulk of our time. And October 1st is when we provide our certification to the state that everyone's in compliance. So as it relates to this year, being that it is an election year, you'll notice that as part of the candidate packet, candidates for office, those who want to be considered for elected office here in the town of Riverdale, have to submit a financial disclosure form. I want to be mindful of the fact that this is separate from the yearly financial disclosure form that is required of the town. And so for those that are in elected office, be mindful of the fact that you may have to submit two this year, one for your candidate packet and one for the town certification. In addition to that, we do also address conflicts of issues, conflicts of interest, as well as issue advisory opinions. It's not something we do often, but we do take this very seriously. And this is really primarily in relation to, as it relates to our role, related to those individuals that may be in positions of authority that should be considered to submit a financial disclosure statement. And this is important, particularly as Riverdale expands and grows. Just in the short time that I've been I've been a resident of the town of Riverdale 9 years. I'm actually was thinking about my daughter. She was born in our house. We had a home birth. She was born in our house 9 years ago. So that's why I kind of measure out how long we've been here. We have seen this town grow exponentially. Whole Foods being in there, Denison's, as well as numerous other restaurants and businesses. In the event that any of these new establishments represent a conflict of interest with any of our conflicts of interest, we may be required to provide advisory opinions. We are working on one. However, we are doing so with consultation with our town manager, as well as with Fred Sussman, who is our commission attorney. Something we have not done, but we are required to do, is managing lobbyist registration and reporting. Again, it's not something we have done, but as the town grows, we may see this becoming more and more relevant. Again, something we have not done, but something that we are charged with doing is investigating and adjudicating alleged violations of the ethics ordinance. This is less for our council members, since they are more likely to know what these rules are, but more for our town, for our membership. That for those that are interested in, for some reason, submitting an alleged violation, please be mindful of the fact that we have limited investigative authority, that any allegations of violations must be within 1 year of the incident, and submitted in writing to us as the Ethics Commission. That can be done at ethics@riverdaleparkmd.gov. And so that can be emailed to us. And last but not least is the enforcement of the ethics ordinance. And so while we do have limited investigative authority, we also have limited enforcement authority as relates to the ethics ordinance. And we do understand how everybody is busy. We try to work with as best we can with everyone to ensure that everybody just submits their financial disclosure forms as thoroughly as possible. And so as we move ahead, one of the things that we've been cognizant of is making sure that we are transparent. And this is where Ms. Barnes has been incredibly helpful with us, and ensuring that our Ethics Commission webpage is up to date with our town minutes. So for those that are interested in the work that we've done, that aren't familiar with our commission, by all means, please visit the town website. We are located, we do have our own page with our minutes from previous meetings that encompass topics that we have addressed. And last but not least, we are continuing to update the town ordinance and financial disclosure statement to ensure that it's conducive and timely. I do again thank you, thank the council for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight. I apologize for being less than well-spoken, but I did wear a jacket. But again, I'm available now to take any questions, or if any questions are not available now, I will be on the call for the remainder of the meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wells. Appreciate it. You are, in fact, I thought your presentation was very nice, very well spoken, and you're more dressed up than I am. I'm just wearing a turtleneck. I'm
I'm wearing
on
a
break.
t-shirt, so I feel like you're way overdressed compared to me.
Well, Aaron, you're still awake, so I really do appreciate that. Considering you just had yoga.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Mayor, but John, thank you so much for the job that it is you do. In a small town like Riverdale Park, we rely upon volunteers so significantly. And I know that every one of the people that is here, and speaking on behalf of the entire council, we are grateful for the job that you do. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Council member, I do want to say that I may be the commissioner, but I would not be able to do the work that I do without the volunteers that Corey and Andrea and April, as well as Jessica and John. I mean, honestly, they're really the heroes here, not me. I'm the guy just here giving the presentation.
So are there any other council or public questions or comments for our ethics chair?
I would concur with Councilmember Foe and share those same sentiments.
Definitely agree. Definitely agree. I have sort of one question, which is there are parts of the financial disclosure form that I fill out that I sometimes feel are slaughtering a bunch of trees, and there might be a more efficient way to get the same information. And can I just make those suggestions to members of the Ethics Commission?
Absolutely.
Or are the forms sort of set in state law, or are those locally developed?
It's a combination of both. So we can take your suggestions and advisement.
Okay, very good. I'll put it on my list.
Sounds good, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
And I guess the other thing, what is the timing for the full year financial disclosure? I was sort of expecting it to be before the election one for some reason, but I don't believe it's come out anyway. If it has, then I'm in trouble.
So for the election, it's April 8th. That's those are any packets, candidate packets, excuse me, that need to be sent to the elections commission. And then for the yearly, it's May 1st.
May 1st. Okay. So right before the election, just to sort of turn the heat up on us.
There you go.
Okay.
All right, sir.
Thank you very much. And so are there additional council questions or public questions or public comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may just add from my position, Mr. Wells, I just want to thank you for your work and the work of the Ethics Commission. It helps us have a better operation, and to have an active Ethics Commission in a small organization, that's an accomplishment in and of itself. But to work with you on some of these issues is a real pleasure. I'm reminded as I look around to other municipalities that have had some issues, and one only need to Google to find just how important it is to have an active ethics commission because situations can arise. And so I just want to thank you and express just how important you and the commission are to the overall operation of the town government. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I guess I have one more little question, if I might ask it before we move on to the next presentation. And that is, and it may be that Ms. Barnes is the one who knows the answer to this, but on the form, there's a checkbox that says, please let me know if anyone asks to see this form. And I was curious to know if anyone ever had, to your knowledge.
During my time with the town, I've not had anybody ask to view the forms, but it is very important for someone who files the form to check that box just in case it is requested as part of a Maryland Public Information Act request.
Understood. Okay. Thank you very much again, Mr. Wells, for both your work and the presentation. And let's move on to the fiscal 2022 budget updates and adjustments.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to be addressing this, and then if Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones have anything they would like to add. We do not have a PowerPoint this evening. Just wanted to touch base on a few items. We're working towards balance. I had hoped to report tonight that we were balanced, and we're currently not. We're close and closer, but tonight we are not in balance yet. And so a few things that you'll read about next week when the proposed budget is released. And so one of those things is that like last year, that the town has questioned the constant yield notice. And we are of the opinion that the state has not included all accessible properties. And I think in time that will bear out, but we will likely not have a revised constant yield notice prior to approval of the budget. So we're going to go with the official numbers that the state has given us. So if anything, the revenues will increase. The other things that are at this point familiar, I believe, we've mentioned the 18% increase in healthcare cost, the 2.5% increase in retirement cost. I am happy to report that after a lot of work, Mr. Jones, Mr. Smith, and myself, working with our workman's comp folks, they're actually going to be applying some discounts. And despite our increase in the, I forget the name of the ratio right now.
Experience points?
Yes, the experience modification. Thank you very much, sir. And but despite our increase in the experience modification, with these discounts they'll be applying, our rate is going to be almost flat, and so that's helping. But these things all coupled together with we're now also looking at increased cost to our IT contractor for IT services next year. Pretty substantial increase. We're still doing some last minute negotiation, trying to hold that number as low as possible. But with all these things, plus the normal increases, it's a tight budget, and we're holding our revenue projections conservative. There's just too much uncertainty going into another year with COVID. And so we're being very conservative with our revenue projections. And I see Paul nodding to that. It's typically him that is really holding the line there. I'll ask him, hey, Paul, do you think we could adjust this up a couple $1,000, and we'll scrub the numbers? And in most cases, he's coming back saying, no, I think we're good with where we are. And so want the mayor and council and the community to know that that we're working towards balance. We'll get there within the next few days. But it is a tight budget in that we're being very conservative on the revenue side. And we are faced with a lot of cost increases for next year. So with that, the three of us will take any questions that the folks may have.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Council, are there questions or comments for Mr. Listician?
None for me.
I had one question about, you know, actually probably for Mr. Smith, about if he could expand on his reasoning for standing pat on the numbers as the town manager had just explained to us about.
I think part of it is just the uncertainty of what's to come. And so we want to try to stay flat on those numbers because we just don't know. You know, one day we have a good day and other days life changes so quick. So we like to be on the conservative side and try to work within our means.
Okay. I guess I have one more question. Has there been any indication based on the recent package that stimulus package that was passed by the federal government? Has staff heard any reports or has received any information about what would the town be able to receive or be eligible for under this
And-
package?
And Paul, if you're okay, I'll take this and then tell me if I missed anything here.
Okay.
So in reference to the American Rescue Plan Act, there's estimates floating around from a variety of sources. And so there are some sources that put our number at 6.1 million in two tranches between now and when the money's expired, which is December 2024. There's a question that I have raised in terms of how the money actually flows to us. I've been in touch with some representatives on the federal level, and I'm actually awaiting a teleconference with someone with the Treasury Department to better understand how the monies may flow to the town. So I have read all the relevant portions of the act. So if you look it up online, you want to look for subtitle M and then in particular section 603. And so it's my thought that we will be receiving funds, and initially we would be depositing those funds into the Economic Development Fund. And then most likely in June, coming to the council and saying, here's the programs that we've set up so far, the current programs that we have. How would you like to spend these additional funds between now and December 2024? And so I do think there's going to be lots of discussion on that, but not necessarily within the confines of the operating and the capital improvement budget.
Right.
But rather kind of separate discussions, and but we would deposit the money in the Economic Development Fund, which, based upon the expanding of the definition last year this time, would allow for broad uses of the funds that all pretty much align with the Act allows.
Okay. All right. So really, it sounds promising.
It does, sir. And as the mayor and I discussed in our last brief conference, there's another portion of the act that says that any jurisdiction cannot receive more than 75% of an annual operating budget, of their current annual operating budget. So our number may be down in the 5.3, 5.4 range. So I think there's a lot of details that need worked out, but still a very significant amount of money that we would be able to program and again be outward facing to the community.
Good. Even at that amount, sounds like opportunities are before us.
Yes, I agree with that, sir.
Okay, thank you. Anything else you wanted to add?
The only other thing, and so once we get through the next few days, we being the leadership team and in particular the budget committee, we are going to start planning on how we would even administer such a large sum of money. And so there's lots of logistics to work out as well as programmatic things. But I think we'll be well positioned to have detailed discussions beginning in early June.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Sounds like it's going to be a busy summer for whomever.
They often are. They often are busy summers. Are there additional council questions or public comments for Mr. Lustitian and the finance team?
That's all I had. Thank you.
Any others? So I received a few text messages from Councilmember Richardson. She is dealing with an urgent constituent issue, and she may not be able to join us this evening, but she did let me know that's what's up. So the next item on the agenda is my report, the mayor's report. And I'm just going to give a short report for the last few reports, and just focusing on the COVID epidemic. Last few reports, I mentioned that the variants, the mutations of the virus that may not be as treatable by some of the antiviral techniques, may not be as effective vaccines. And I was on a call with the State Department of Health, including State Department of Health last Friday. And they are now estimating that circulating in Maryland, 40% of all of the cases of COVID are now these variants, and it's dominated by the B.1.1.7 variant, which is what's the most common in the UK. And this variant seems to be slightly less impacted by some of the vaccines in terms of transmissibility. The vaccines still protect against serious illness, but it is much more contagious. And so I just want to encourage everyone to continue exercising as much caution as you possibly can, avoiding large groups, avoiding public spaces, public not well ventilated spaces. If you are going to be meeting with people, then try to do it outside. And of course, wear masks, and don't forget to wash your hands and maintain cleanliness that way. So that is, I guess I'll just mention, it was brought up or mentioned before by Mr. Wells in terms of the Ethics Commission presentation, but we have an election coming up and the filing deadline is Thursday, April 8th. And that's at 3 p.m. Is that right, Ms. Barnes? Or is it at 5 p.m.?
It's at 5 p.m., but because of town hall being closed, appointments will need to be made to deliver the packets to town hall, or you can send them by mail.
Or we can also drop them in the ballot box, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, very good. And you can pick up those packets at town hall if you are interested in running for a position. So that concludes my report. And any questions or comments? Let's move on then to the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be relatively brief. Ditto on the mayor's comments on COVID. It's very similar to the message I delivered at an all-staff meeting earlier today. The fight's not over, and we have to actually double down. So a few reminders. We have the budget public hearings scheduled for April 17th, which is a Saturday, and the following Saturday, April 24th, both scheduled for 9:30 a.m. and it's via Zoom. For the mayor and council, if you would like a printed budget book, please let Ms. Barnes know. We are reducing costs where we can, and some folks prefer paper, others prefer the online, some like both. So if you want a printed budget book, please let Ms. Barnes know, and we will make sure we have one printed for you. I mentioned that you will have the budget presented to you next week, and that is our intent. I give one caution. Myself and several members of the leadership team, including folks on the budget committee, are all receiving our second COVID shots this week. And so provided that the people don't become ill for a day or two or three, we will have the budget to you on Monday. If key staff have bad reactions and are out for a day or two, it may be delayed by a day or two. So we'll see how that goes. Good to know that we received a request from Riverdale Elementary School to assist them with parking. They actually asked if there's a way that we could help them find 20 parking spaces on Queensbury Road. And I think this just highlights the need for parking at the school. And then there's with Town Hall and being closed to the public currently, I think that helps out. But when things do return to normal, I think a longer term solution is going to have to be developed to assist the elementary school. An idea that you'll be hearing more about, but I'm having some staff conversations about, and that is to create another committee, a resident committee that can assist in an advisory role on public projects. It's an idea that Ms. Lewis and I have discussed, and other members of the leadership team getting their input. But it's something that we're going to work on and bring to you in early June for another opportunity for residents to become involved and provide some insight and counsel to the staff on public projects. The Municipal Center project is continuing to move forward. So we have an invitation to bid out on the street, and the response to that invitation to bid has been outstanding. And I want to thank Ms. Lewis for her work, and Ms. Barnes for her work, and really designing and ensuring we have a solid process when it comes to invitation to bids. And this particular one has 14 interested bidders on the Municipal Center project. And that's just incredible that we're attracting that type of attention, but also that we're getting the word out. And I think the town has a good reputation as it relates to how we administer our bids. And that helps as well in terms of among contractors, they know which customers are appropriate to deal with and which ones maybe not to par. The last thing I have is in County Council Member Glaros's newsletter. There's a Maglev Community Forum on Tuesday. And that's a virtual community forum about the Maglev project. That's tomorrow night at 7 p.m. And you can check her newsletter for details. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Are there any questions for the Town Manager?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, may I?
Please do.
Mr. Lustician, regarding the bids, I take it that the request window is already closed and staff is now reviewing the 14 bid application?
No, sir. There was a mandatory pre-bid meeting as well as tours. And that's where I'm getting that number from the site tours and the pre-bid.
Okay.
meeting.
Oh,
And,
okay. All right.
and so the bids, Ms. Lewis, can you advise when the bids are due?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. The bids are due Monday, April 5th at noon, with a public
Okay.
bid opening at 2 p.m. the same day.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I think it's great news that we have that many contractors interested.
And I will add that initially we were thinking that if it was a small group, we'd be able to advise the council on the results pretty quick. But if we have 14 bids, it's going to take staff some time to pour through those. And so I think we all know what next week's going to involve. So.
Okay. Yeah, I could imagine. Thank you.
Okay. Are there additional questions for the Town Manager? Hearing none, let's move on to Council, Committee, and Ward reports. Councilmember Dixon is here, is that correct?
Yes, I
Please.
will defer my report until our next meeting.
Fantastic. Councilmember Foe.
I too will withhold the majority of my report for the next council session. I know I was joking about this earlier, but I just want to remind everyone, I believe that the budget discussions that we have are the two most important meetings that we have every single year. I would encourage everyone in the town to attend if you really want to see what your taxpayer dollars go to. These information sessions are a remarkable insight into local government and necessary attendance. And I want to apologize in advance if I miss any minutes of them. My wife is due, as I mentioned, on April 17th. And my first responsibility is to be a husband and then a father. And I just want to promise anybody in Riverdale Park that if I'm forced to miss even a second of those, I will seek out the town manager and I will seek out summaries and I will seek out the mayor and other council members. It's the most fundamental document that we look at the entire year. And I feel a responsibility to be a part of those. So if I'm forced to be absent, there's nothing I can do about that, but I promise you I will obtain that information to the best of my ability. And with that, I yield.
I think that that's a pretty good excuse. I can't imagine too many that are better than that. So
I feel bad. I don't want to miss any second of them because I mean, you recognize the significance of those two meetings, and I wouldn't want anybody to think that I was being derelict in my duties.
Understood. Well, we will definitely, you'll have time in advance, hopefully, to review the document.
Yeah.
And at least my first child was about a week late. So, who knows? We'll can never tell.
Right.
But anyway, thank you for your report. Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Rufo, I'd happy to work with you ahead of time on that as well. In regards to my report for this week, just two quick things. I'll have more details, but I just want to let it know, put it on folks' radar. The CCAR CDC is meeting, small group is meeting weekly on Thursdays to discuss the Sarvis Empowerment Cafe project, a project that is looking to come towards completion with the final build out. I'll have more of a full update on that next Monday. Second thing, a small note, that on the 19th of March was the final day, the last day for Edward Day as director over at Riversdale House Museum. He's now moved on to bigger and broader offices at MNC-PCC. And I was able to stop by on Thursday to read share a proclamation with Ed and staff proclaiming the 20th of March Edward Day. He was very appreciative of that, as well as the support that Riversdale has gotten from the town and from the community. And with that, I will hold other items until next Monday.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember, yes?
may I just have a second on that? Councilman Ling was mention of Riversdale made me want to bring up. I saw that they introduced a new director, Maya Davis. I just want to congratulate her on her appointment to that position. And I think an African-American woman in that position is an incredible hire, as the way that we look at that museum and its past history. And I just really think that is an incredible hire, and I'm excited to see what she brings to our community. So, sorry.
No, that's just fine. Thank you. Councilmember Henry is not present. Is that correct? I saw a dial-in number, which I wasn't sure if it was him or not, but he's not here. As I mentioned earlier, Councilmember Richardson is occupied with an urgent constituent service. Councilmember Mayers.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. No road report at this time.
Very good, thank you. Let's move on to public comments. Are there any public comments this evening? I have limited ability to sort of see things here, so I'm looking to see if anybody has their hand up or anything like that. Looks like not, so let's move on to our work session discussion items. And the first one is a curb cut request for 4811 Sheridan Street. Is there a presentation from the
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor Thompson, members of the council. As the mayor mentioned, we received a curb cut request for 4811 Sheridan Street, and this is part of an overall project to build a new home at that location. The driveway and curb cut was included in the county's approval of the building permit for the home, but the town needs to approve, the mayor and council need to approve the actual curb cut component of that project. Mr. Carl Granzo is here with us tonight, and he'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about the project.
I have one question. Is the driveway itself going to be a permeable driveway, or is it just standard concrete?
Standard concrete driveway.
Okay. And I guess this is just idle curiosity on my part. I've been watching the construction. When do you expect the house to actually be completed and on the market?
If the curb cut is approved, it's not on the market. This is a little different than what we normally do. We've actually been contracted by family to build this. Actually, it's a Riverdale family. They're moving from one side of 410 to the other side, from Longfellow Street over the Allens. So we should be done in about 3 to 4 weeks. Everything on the inside is just about done. The outside should be wrapped up in the next, weather permitting. We've had a lot of in and out rain. That kind of curtails our ability, but for the most part, everything is done on the outside. All it is planting the grass now. So probably within 30 days, they'll be moving in. They want to move in by May 1st.
Okay.
Yeah. So this isn't really a Werline house, so to speak. This is really for, a family.
Particular family.
Particular family. Yeah.
Well, I'm very jealous of their wraparound porch, I have to say.
It's probably bar none. It's probably one of the most beautiful houses we've done so far because of that porch.
I'd say it's absolutely incredible. We've been lucky enough to walk past it many mornings, and just we are envious of it. I love the red metal roof that was put on as well.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful addition to Ward 2, and thank you guys for doing some great work.
I cannot take credit for that. The Allens, Katie and Philip Allen, have been extremely hands-on on everything there. Both of them have picked that out. And maybe one day you'll be able to be inside. They've done a very unique look inside, and they love it, and it's beautiful.
Awesome.
We just been happy to be a part of their success. That's all.
Yeah.
So
fantastic. Okay, are there additional questions on the actual curb cut?
So I know if I may add, Jessica asked me a few days ago about some of the stormwater management. I just want to add, they talked about rain barrels and things like that. As you guys may know, the county is very aggressive on stormwater management. So even if something like a rain barrel, that particular property, because of its size and its positioning and stuff like that, that has underground stormwater management. And so far as dry wells, it's a very big dry well system there. So the stormwater management there is very unique, and to Riverdale. It's not unique to any of the rest of the county, but it's very aggressive. So I know that was a concern that Jessica said may brought up, so I might as well just talk about it. But it should be pretty good.
Yeah, the county passed new stormwater regulations, I believe, in 2010 or 2012, or early in that decade. And so this is constructed to those standards, fully constructed to those standards.
Very exciting.
Yeah, that's great. It's probably better at holding stormwater than it was when it was unbuilt then. So that's good.
No question. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Additional questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, 2 quick ones.
Yes.
To that point about the dry well system, what is the capacity of it?
Well, I'm not an engineer, but those things are all engineered. There's 2 very large ones, one in the back and one on the front, but there's a mathematical computation that the engineers do that the county must approve for capacity, and they do all their calculations. So, I mean, I could more than happy to forward you the plan, and it has those numbers on it. If
you could, please.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. I didn't know if it was on this document here that I probably need to more carrots to be able to read.
John, I think I did forward you guys a site plan. So I think the dry wells are on the site plan. Yeah, it's on the site plan. Site plans these days have a tremendous amount of information, so I know it's hard to pull through. But if you look on the front well, it says front yard, it says dry well number 1 or 2, and then the backyard has dry well number 1 or 2, whatever one is on each side.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. Okay, I just found it. There we go.
It's a pretty good size.
It's kind of buried in there, but yeah, I'm making it out now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They're already in there. Sure.
The other question I had was regarding when they did the survey for this, did they determine where the water table was?
Yes.
in this area?
So every house before it's built, there's a requirement to do a geo survey. And by county regulation, you cannot be closer than 30 inches to the water table. So wherever the water table is, we have to be 30 inches above that.
Okay.
So speaking directly for this particular lot, I don't know where it is, but I can certainly send you that geotech, that 40-page geotech report that says it all in a nutshell in the first paragraph or two. But whatever it is, we're 30 inches above, at least 30 inches above.
Okay.
that.
So you're compliant with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, just wanted to make, just was
It's
curious.
it's a county code. They're pretty absolute on that.
Okay,
The
Right.
the new stormwater regulations are quite strict. They are making up for the mistakes of the past. So
Did I mention they were
I'm,
quite exciting?
thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Okay.
okay. Are there any additional public comments or council questions for the curb cut request? Councilmember Foe, do you have a way you would like to see this disposed? Would you like to see it put on the consent agenda for next week?
I would like that.
Okay,
I'm satisfied with the discussion of the dry wells. I think those were great points brought up. And I think this is something that we should add to the consent agenda.
okay, okay, very good.
Curb cut.
Let's,
Sure.
okay, well, let's move on to the next item. Item 2, fence permit request, 6-foot wood fence in the backyard of 4908 Queensbury Road.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. The town received a building permit application from a resident for a 6-foot wood fence in the backyard of 4908 Queensbury Road. The applicant will be removing an existing chain link fence in their backyard and replacing it with a 6-foot wooden privacy fence. The applicant has already obtained a Prince George's County permit for the project, and it's my understanding that the resident is in the meeting today. So if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Ms. Green, I'd like to first of all welcome you to town, and I hope you are settling in okay. And let's see if there are council questions about the fence permit request. Are there any council questions about this request?
Mr. Mayor, if I take it by what I'm seeing here on the drawing is that the fence is going to follow along the same configuration as the chain link fence.
That's what it looked like to me. I couldn't tell about the location of the front chain link fence from the photographs that were included, whether those were exactly at the front of the house or not, but that's my memory of that location.
Okay. And it looks like the fence is coming out to the front building line.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's what the application has on it, at least.
Okay. And I take it the application is looking to retain the rear gate in the back of the property.
That I am not sure of.
Hi, Rosalind here. Yes, we intend to keep the gate as is and just replace it with a wooden one.
Okay. So essentially, all options on the fence as it is right now, it can be replaced, but they're just going to be in wood. And it's 6 feet. Is that correct?
Yes, in the back it'll maintain the same layout. In the front, it'll just hit the front of the house.
Okay.
Okay. Any additional council questions or comments or public comments on this request? Councilmember Fo, go ahead.
Go ahead. No. I think you're going to probably ask the same thing on the subject, so please go ahead.
Yes, Councilmember Fo, do you have a thought on how to dispose of this?
No, my
Request?
recommendation was going to be to the consent agenda, but I wanted to check with Councilman Lingua first if he thought that was okay.
Well, as far as I can tell you, I think that probably the one question that I thought the mayor was going to ask, as he normally does, is if the resident conferred with the adjacent neighbors about putting up with replacing the chain link with a 6-foot high privacy fence that's going to run up along the sides of their property.
Yeah,
Ms. Green?
Yes, we've discussed.
You've spoken with your neighbors about this and you've talked to them about it,
Yes,
and they're okay with you're putting up this 6-foot fence.
yes,
I'm sorry, that cut out.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, so unless something comes up, then this will be on the consent agenda next week and is very likely to be passed. So thank you, Ms. Green, for coming and answering our questions. And I'll be in contact with you. I believe there's contact information that town staff have should the status change between now and next Monday. Okay, let's move on to the next item. Another fence permit request, this time a 6-foot vinyl fence at 5022 Oglethorpe Street, which I'm pretty sure is Ward 3, is that correct?
That it is. Very unique property in Ward 3.
There are a lot of those.
Yes, there are. So especially this is a little more recent.
Okay, is there a staff presentation on this?
There is. Good evening again. Yes, like as the mayor said, that there is a second building permit application submitted on behalf of the property owners Michael Train and Aaron Murphy for a 6-foot vinyl fence at 5022 Oglethorpe Street. This applicant has also already received a Prince George's County permit for the project, and I believe that this resident is also in attendance if there are any questions.
Great. I have a few. I believe it's Ms. Murphy on. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
You've got yourself quite the interesting house.
Yes, it is.
I remember that. I remember when that house was built, and I remember a number of things that the previous owners, the Astros, went through with the county, the landscaping on the project, especially along that east side, where you saw that drain that runs down, runs along the side of the property and runs down towards the street.
Yep.
And I think my only concern is and I've seen how you've laid out the various heights, color-coded heights on the universal title page, and you have down in that very corner that 3-foot, 3.5-foot high fence, right about where that drain comes down. And I think that really my one concern with that is making sure that that drain, there's clearance there so that water has free flow down to the street.
Yes. Yeah, it does. It's pretty much, I think it's structurally impossible to block it. So there'll be, because of how far it goes down, and it's going to follow the line of the existing fence.
Okay.
So we've had woodchucks coming in and out of there, so there's at least enough room for woodchucks to get through, and definitely enough room for water as far as we can see so far, like since we moved.
Okay, and so the fence is following the existing fence lines now, as you just mentioned, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And I believe on that east side, if I remember correctly, the fence where the drain is, you have that retaining wall, and that the fence is going up along that side where is that going to run next to the property? I think it's 5024 currently has a chain link fence.
Yes.
Running alongside, so it'll be next to that chain link fence, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And I take it you talked with Mr. Durham about the fence you want to put along there. Is that correct?
We haven't, but it's going to be like it's not going to be, the 6 foot part won't extend up there, so that will still be the 4 foot. Yeah, and we haven't seen anyone go in or out of that house since we moved in December, so it's sort of, we're not sure.
Right, that's still his property though. And I think it might be a good idea to get in touch with him. Okay, your 6 foot part is coming down to your front building line, correct? And then
Yes.
it's 4 foot?
Yes.
So I keep forgetting that, the extent to which 5022, your house, fits back from the road. So, and it was just throwing me a little bit when I was seeing that front property line, realizing that Mr. Durham's house is essentially roughly where you have indicated for your 3.5 foot high fence section. So,
yeah.
And were you able to chat? I know you have on your west side, you have a what's referred to as a flag plot property back there. It's the Wilsons.
Yes.
20. Had you talked to them about
yes,
6 foot high section along there, and they're okay with it?
Yeah.
Okay. You've covered all the bases.
Okay.
Yeah, I would recommend to the council on this that that in terms of what is being presented here, and having spoke with the two neighbors adjacent to them on Oglecorp, I know that there are other houses that back up to this property that are along the 6,000 block of Riverside Drive, being that essentially that's also the back of those properties. I do not see that as being an issue. So I would, if it is all right with the other council members, I'd like to see this put on the consent agenda.
Okay. If I might just make a few comments, I'd also like to welcome you to town, Ms. Murphy. I appreciate the difficulty of meeting all of the requirements on a lot like this and the arrangement of nearby lots. And I appreciate the diligence and hard work that you've put in on this. And I presume your fence design firm has also put in on this. And the one thing I would like to, I'll let staff correct me on this or not, but I believe that we still have a grant program that the neighbors who have chain link fences could receive a grant in order to take out the places where their fence will be up against the wooden fence. Is that correct, Mr. Lestitian?
Yes, and for details, either Ms. Barnes or Mr. Shelton.
Fantastic. So if you could just let your neighbors know about that, then they might have a nicer fence to look at, looking at your new fence rather than looking at their chain link fence in front of your new fence. So
Okay.
if you could alert them to that, I would be most appreciative.
Sure. Will do.
Okay, then I'll, as with the previous request, this will go on the consent agenda, and unless something very unusual happens, then it will stay there, and I will reach out to you if that changes before next Monday's meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and again, welcome to town. Okay, let's move on to the next item on the work session discussion item list, number 4, fiscal year 2021 revenue analysis.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Lestitian. Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. Tonight's revenue report is similar to the revenue reports that I've presented in previous work sessions. It's going to cover revenue from July up until mid-March. There's an error there at the top of the screen that should say March, so I do apologize for that. I caught that after I had submitted the work packet, but again, yeah, that's going to be up until March 26th that the revenue will be compared. So the first major category is local taxes, which consists of the real estate taxes, personal property tax, local income tax, and operating tax. So overall, where we're at, $6,428,000, which is a bit higher than where we've been at in previous years. The highest we've been, which was the last fiscal year up until this point, was $6,054,000. At this point, we haven't yet received the March local income taxes. We typically receive that at the end of the month, the last day of the month. Historically, we've received about 10 to 15,000 around that time frame. So we expect to receive more for the local income tax. For real estate taxes, which is the first item, 4001, we're at $5,010,187. At this point, we have received February and March revenue for this line item, and we're about roughly 60,000 more than we've been at in previous fiscal years for February and March. So we are a bit higher in that category. Additionally, we're still waiting to hear back from UNICAP. They project that we'll be able to flow back 205,000 to this to the real estate taxes. Thus far, they've confirmed 97,000. So we expect to have $107.5 thousand added to that particular line item. For personal property tax, we've received much of the income for this line item. In my previous report, we had a higher outstanding receivables amount, but as of the 26th, that number's come down considerable. So we do expect to receive the majority of that line item. For operating tax, we're at $212,790, which is about where we were in the previous fiscal year. The next major category is licenses and permits. We are at a total of $219,601. This category, it's going to include your multifamily rental licenses, single family rental licenses, building permits, building licenses, and parking permits. So where we're at right now, we're in a good place as far as our licenses and permits, given that this year has been different than in previous years. We're actually outperforming where we were in the previous year. Next category is administrative fees. This is going to include the abatement charges and municipal infractions. We're at $900. In previous years, we have received a bit more, but again, this is not a typical year, so that is expected. The next category is fines and forfeitures, which is your police reports, vehicle impounds, and parking citation revenue. We are at $34,166, down a bit from previous years. And again, that is also expected due to COVID. The final major category that we have is the community safety programs. This is your speed camera revenue. We're at $648,919, up considerably from previous years at this time period. We've already exceeded what was budgeted, and we have about roughly 5 months left of revenue to collect. This number is high due to more speeding vehicles, due to less people on the road. So while this is fairly high now, it's not a revenue source that we expect to continue to be, high for considerable time, especially as we're putting together the budget. So overall, our total income amount is $7,331,702 for all of the categories that we have on the screen. And in comparison to previous fiscal years, we are outperforming. So as far as a revenue standpoint, we do like where we are for the current fiscal year. Yeah, that concludes the revenue analysis report, and I will take any questions that anybody has.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. This is just to clarify, this is the projections for the end of the fiscal year, and not what we actually have in hand at this time. And are you presuming?
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
These are not projections.
Yeah, this is current revenue.
Yes.
Okay, so have we? I didn't receive the actual sheet, and so I'm trying to read some very tiny little numbers on my phone screen. So the amount that we have actually received at this point is what fraction of the anticipated or the budgeted revenue for the entire year?
Let me pull that up 1 second.
The current budget is $7,251,000 and some change.
Yeah, we've exceeded the budgeted revenue amount.
Okay, that's good.
But and that's great given the conditions. But in order to fund CIP for next year, it's the revenue. I just wanted to share for those watching that any additional revenue that comes in funds the capital projects for the subsequent year.
Understood. Thank you. Are there additional council questions, council comments, or public comments on this this report or analysis?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please.
Thank you. This revenue side is, given what we've had to endure the past 12 months, is welcome news. Yet, I guess I'm wondering about projections on expenses or towards the end of this year, and how staff is seeing those.
Mr. Jones?
Yes. Well, so as far as our expenditures, we do plan to hit the budgeted amount that we had for the year. Yeah, we've been very conservative with our spending. So we do plan to, again, reach, not exceed our budgeted expenditure amount, which would give us a surplus that John mentioned would be to fund CIP projects for the subsequent budget year.
Okay, okay, so on a rough amount of $640,000 that our revenues are up over the previous year, looks like a fairly solid number that we would conclude this current fiscal year with.
Well, as of now, what we're actually working on that now, Councilman. When we present the budget, we'll have an estimated amount that will reflect that.
You'll have something a little more accurate.
Correct. Yes.
I mean, I know this is like you're just looking at years up through this date, and it's very much a ballpark. But based on what you're seeing in terms of expenditures now, and what you're saying that they're in line with what was budgeted for this year.
Yes, correct.
I don't know how much more you're expecting in revenue over the next 3 months.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're close to getting to a figure right now. When we present the budget, we'll have a more solid figure, but we're very close to having a projected revenue figure and expenditure figure for the current year, and then for the budgeted amount for next year.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Of course. Are there additional council or public comments or questions? Hearing none, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, public meeting format. Is there a staff presentation?
There is, and I'm going to start this one off, Mr. Mayor, and Ms. Barnes will assist me as we go, and in case I forget anything. So I mentioned in the State of the Town presentation that there are some changes that we made in response to COVID that we've seen a positive response in reference to. And one of those is having online meetings and having residents being able to attend online. And as the mayor and council recall, back in March of last year, the council passed a resolution authorizing remote meetings for the council. And so the question is that in the months ahead, as things hopefully normalize, at some point, the state of emergency that the state declared and that the county declared will be lifted. And at that time, what type of meetings would the council like to have in terms of their public meetings? And what would it be, all in person? Would there be a desire to continue remote meetings? Would there be a desire to have a hybrid model where it's both remote and in-person meetings? So we just wanted to get the conversation started and to receive any feedback and direction from the council, whether you would like staff to look into different models of public meetings for the mayor and council meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Listician. Council, thoughts? What do you think?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I love a hybrid model. I love the idea of meeting in person because there's so many dialogues that occur informally before and after meetings where so many things. So I desire to return to a meeting in person because that's where I just feel so much communication is shared in that time prior and post to meetings. But I also like being able to, if necessary, being able to participate in a meeting in case of an emergency. As becoming a parent, I know that I've mentioned this a lot, and I'm sure Marcia can attest to this significantly with a young child. I'm sure that sometimes it would be easier to, commit to a meeting virtually as well. So I would be totally on board with a hybrid model. This has been remarkably easy doing it like this, but I do seek the normalcy of being in the same room with all of you and getting to work face to face again. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Other council members, thoughts?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please do.
On that note, my kind of question on this is, when is a hybrid meeting no longer a hybrid meeting? And essentially it's a virtual meeting. Like what Councilmember Bo brought up, I think it's important that we meet in person. I just, what we've been doing these past months has been to address a very unusual and extenuating circumstance. And I know I would prefer if we were able to go back to in-person meetings. I think we need to really flesh out when and how, and what is the process of when someone is going to be meeting by by Zoom or something of that nature. I think there are just a number of questions that we need to get answered in terms of how we want to address what would be considering a hybrid meeting in the future.
Well, I
know that we've heard from folks before residents who thought would appreciate being able to attend meetings virtually. So, I think that's a possibility, but please go ahead.
So I was going to say that there's a wide range of options for hybrid meetings, which go all the way from pure virtual, as we're having at this time. That's not a hybrid, but it's at one end of the spectrum. And then there are intermediate points where perhaps a quorum of council members have to be there in person, but perhaps other council members can join who might not otherwise be able to join, to where all council members who wish to participate are required to be on site. And I think the question that's coming from staff, as I understand it, is should they investigate this, or are we just going to go back to that one very end of the spectrum of choices where everyone is required to be present? And there's a question also of whether staff should be physically present, or whether some members of staff might be able to attend virtually. And so is that the question, Mr. Elistician, is should you investigate more, or are we just going back to the previous form as soon as it's safe to do so?
I believe that's the question, sir. We have the two polar ends, and is there something in the middle that the council wants us to investigate?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with everything that Councilman Lingua said. I believe that the focus and goals of council should be able to meet in session. And I do believe there should be rules specified around that. But I also do believe from a staff perspective, it could potentially prevent them from having to commit to 12 to 16-hour days in a building. And I think that could allow for a better work personal life mix for some staff members. So I think it's worth exploring But I also agree with Councilman Lingua that there needs to be some specificity as it applies to what council needs to be doing in particular.
Mhm. Okay, well, unless I misunderstood you, Councilman Lingua, then it sounds like you're okay with them providing us some options and we can choose from that.
Yes, I think they can, but I think there are just some options, some aspects about this that really need to come from the council.
Mhm. Oh, sure.
And I mean, going back, reviewing charter and code on this, and one of those things that we're going to need to be looking at and considering how it's going to be defined in the future is excused and unexcused absences from meetings.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if this technology is now available, and I mean, the fact that now that council is being afforded equipment that would allow them to participate in either work sessions or legislative sessions, that how council address, how the council, the body addresses absences, excused or unexcused absences of its members needs to be reviewed.
Sure.
And I think that needs to be done by the council. I don't think that really needs to fall on staff.
Well, I believe that I believe that staff will be providing a wide range of options that we can consider. And, at the moment, pending council action, then as soon as the emergency order from the governor expires, then we're back at 100% physical meetings.
Right.
So it will require council action to move from that.
Okay.
And for clarity, Mr. Mayor, a large part of what staff would research is how we can technically do that and have the technology in place to have hybrid meetings, as well as we can reach out to other jurisdictions that maybe have already asked and answered some of these questions and report back to you what our research has uncovered.
Very good. Councilmember Dixon, do you have any thoughts? You haven't spoken on this.
I'm gonna give it some more thought. I agree with Councilman Lingua that some of the decisions have to come from us, but I want to give it more thought. Yeah, because even if it's lifted, I do think that we should continue to take into consideration any personal, personal desires or personal issues, if you will, that a staff member may have in terms of coming back and potentially being in the office, like Councilman Foe said, for 16 hours. I just want to think it through. I know, though, a lot of people are getting vaccinated. My full-time employment is giving consideration to personal needs of employees, and though two different industries, I think that we should just think through how we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And not say it's lifted, everyone come, you're all required to come back in. I mean, if it's a survey, an anonymous survey in terms of comfort or background, myself, I still have a a 6-year-old who's full-time distance learning. So I just think we're going to have to think, I encourage us to think through all of the implications for the staff versus just saying it's lifted and council now.
And,
True.
and Mr. Mayor, if I may add just one additional thing, in my
Please do.
conversations with Ms. Barnes, we really viewed this as impacting 3 different audiences. So you have the mayor and council and whatever rules that you all establish for yourselves as it relates to meeting attendance and hybrid meetings and things of that nature. And then there's the staff component, which I plan on being physically present at every in-person meeting. But that's me, but there may be occasions where staff members are out of town or limited in some other regards. And then the third audience, and perhaps the most important are the residents, and whether or not there can be attendance by residents in a hybrid model, and to just increase resident involvement in or participation at meetings. So it's like the 3 audiences is how we were looking at it.
Okay. Councilmember Mayers, do you have any thoughts?
I don't have any thoughts at this time. I need to think about it a little more, like Councilman Dixon said. There are too many variables right now that they're unpredictable. So I'm thinking like Mr. Letition said, if they give us some ideas, maybe we can take a look at them and see what's going on. But right now, it is kind of difficult to narrow down a decision. There are too many variables that need to be answered.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so since Councilmember Dixon sort of mentioned her employer's stance, I'll just mention that my day job has basically said that they do not anticipate coming back to full staff attendance ever, that they have decided that telework is productive enough that that they don't anticipate that they're going to go back to their previous not a lot of tolerance for telework among the staff. And of course, public meetings are a very different thing. And I think that it is very important for the council, if at all possible, to be in attendance. And it's a question of what to do with the edge cases of, is someone on work-related travel and they would be able to attend from that? Or is someone exhibiting symptoms of a disease that they might pass on to other members of the council if they were in physical attendance, but they would like to be in attendance in spite of that? And so I think there are a lot of questions to be answered there, and we should think very carefully before moving forward. But I think that having the staff do some research to provide us with what options we have is probably a good idea. And it sounds like everyone is interested in hearing more. So unless we hear any objections, then I think that would be the recommendation that we would pass on to staff. But of course, there's an important group that we haven't heard from, and that's any members of the public who might have some thoughts on this. So are there members of the public who have thoughts on this proposal to consider different formats for public meetings? Ms. Katz?
Hello. Yes, so I really don't have anything different to offer than the discussion. I'm glad how the discussion went. As a resident of the town, I've absolutely appreciated being able to not just watch the meetings, but participate in them, which previously, if you're just watching over cable, you couldn't do. I don't even have cable, so I wasn't able to attend that way previously anyway. So I would definitely encourage the council to allow the staff to bring forward some options. I would caution a couple things. I do agree with Councilmember Lingua that there is an advantage to being in person before and after the meeting. So that's nice, but I would also caution that a hybrid model, I'm curious what the staff will bring forward, is a different animal than what we're experiencing now. Because when you have some people together present and some people virtual, and now I'm speaking from like my personal work experience, you've got to make an extra effort to include those who are virtual that you don't have to do now because everyone is on the same level here. We're all virtual. So there will be different challenges, I think, to bear if you pick a type of hybrid attendance, but it would definitely is something that I would be in favor of. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional public comments? Any additional council comments?
Mr. Mayor, I have one brief one.
Yes.
I'm kind of hearing really two different topics, and one of them being is about that staff brought up regarding when orders are lifted and it's been decreed, for lack of a better term, it may not be the proper one, by either the governor or the county executive that it is safe to meet in public. As we've seen, we've had folks lift restrictions on things, and all of a sudden we start seeing numbers start going up again. I think in the case for the town and for how we meet, conduct town business, my thought is to be better safe than sorry, and to go back to have an eventual goal of going back to in public meetings. But I think we should do it when we feel that it's safe to do so, and I think that really needs to be a function of vaccination.
It's a function of many things, but yes, your point is well taken.
That's just one of them. One factor we can look at and decide.
Mm-hmm. Right, and
it's our call to make.
Yes, and the call that we made last spring was that we would go virtual so long as there was a declared state of emergency by either, I believe, the state, but perhaps the county's declaration is sufficient at this time. And so the part of the question is whether we want to revisit that, and if so, how, perhaps with more subtlety than we had time to consider last spring.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I could just add one thing, just for a clarifying point, that just to bifurcate my points, I think there's one aspect of what I was trying to say is in terms of how we want to move forward in day-to-day operations as far as our staff. Once this is lifted, and then separate from that are the public meetings. So I want to just sort of bifurcate that. And as staff considers various options to present to the council, I will say that to the extent that we can give some options to someone who may want to be on the council, having more flexibility. As a single parent to a child who was a toddler when I joined the council, and has sort of been raised in the eyes of all of you, as I bring them to council meetings and so forth. I think just going forward, greater flexibility would also, I think, help as far as encouraging those in the public who may not necessarily consider running for a council seat because it may seem too daunting or too restrictive in terms of the time commitment and the flexibility. To the extent that we can do that, I think, it would encourage more of a, not that we aren't diverse more now, but more of a diverse council in, future years, if we can provide that type of flexibility.
Very good point. Is there additional discussion?
Mr. Mayor, this is John Wells. One thing I would think just to be mindful of is including maybe if this is a hybrid approach is something you're going to move forward with, including a threshold for the amount of time that individual council member has to be present within the town. I can see I can see a situation where a council member could be teleworking from a different location other than the town of Riverdale, and while still being a council member, and that may not be accessible for some reason or another, because of a hybrid model, because of this hybrid model. So I think that if you are to move forward with that, there are some level of threshold should be incorporated into that business model in order to incorporate the amount of time that person needs to be actually physically present within the town of Riverdale.
You mean for the meeting?
I mean, just in general. I mean, you can't. I mean, I would figure that. Okay, so let's say, for example, I run for council, and now I'm doing a hybrid model, but I'm in Vermont for 50% of my time. You know, I can see that can be an issue, not being accessible to my to my constituents or whatever. And so I would just be mindful of the fact that, you know, that whoever that is, that whatever model you move forward with, that you are including some type of threshold for that person to be present within the town of Riverdale, whether it's 75%, whether it's 60%, 80%, whatever. But that that council member needs to be present. Not in person, but at the very least in the town of Riverdale.
I think, Mr. Wells, I hear what you're saying, and Mr. Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we have, I don't know if it's written, but at least some unwritten rule that your primary residence has to be in Riverdale Park. I'm not sure how exactly one could monitor where a council member is throughout the year. Because even in a model where you're coming in person, someone could show up to every council meeting and still not reside in the town for 50% of the time. But piggybacking off of what you said, I think whatever is recommended, I think if there's an option, pardon me, my throat. If there's an option where there can be remote attendance by council, I do believe that staff, you know, should take into consideration that it should not be 100% remote attendance, and that attendance would have to have at least maybe the majority of the time would have to be the council member would have to be present, physically present in person, but there is the option of a hybrid model. But I'm not sure how we can monitor where someone is at any given time.
So you're referring to individual attendance at meetings, be it in person or virtual.
Right, that if there's a virtual option, like I think of the times when, you know, I might have a sitter, but my son just he doesn't want to go to sleep with that person. So I will bring him to the meeting. And an idea, what has been helpful is, though he still stays up and doesn't go to bed, I can still be present for a meeting and he can be asleep in the house and I'm here. I don't think that should be all the time, because I think there is something missing in not attending and being a part of physically present as a part of the council. But I think what the past year has shown us is it's possible to conduct meetings in this manner. So to the extent that we can, you know, 20% of the time, you know, or you can not be present. I don't know what that threshold is, but just some flexibility I think would be helpful, and I think it could work.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I think we're going to see some options from staff, and this is not going to be a short discussion. There'll be a lot of other chances to discuss this and consider options. But I think we have given the direction to staff that they were requesting this evening. And so unless there are any other big points, we can move on to the next item. And just for reference, I'm not physically located inside the town of Riverdale Park tonight. I'm on vacation right now. So, but I would be at every single legislative meeting. Okay, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the City of Greenbelt request for cost sharing expenses related to the superconducting magnetic levitation train draft environmental impact statement review.
Ms. Barnes.
Thompson and members of the council. On March the 11th, the mayor and city council of the city of Greenbelt sent a letter to the town and others requesting financial assistance or cost sharing with regard to opposition efforts relating to the maglev train project. The funds would go towards the payment of consultants for to review the draft environmental impact statement, as well as a number of technical experts in various fields relating to like geotechnical engineering, transportation and ridership analysis, and air quality, very similar type experts in different fields. The city of Greenbelt estimates the cost to be approximately $300,000. There's no specific discussion about what the cost share relationship would look like. This is just simply requesting financial support from the town of Riverdale Park for their efforts. Some additional information about the project, which we all know is highly controversial, is available at the link provided. The town manager mentioned in his report that there will be a meeting tomorrow night hosted by Councilmember Glaros. This is a hot topic, but certainly with widespread impact in Prince George's County.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes. Council thoughts? Actually, I'm gonna jump in with a quick question. The letter states that the comment period ends on April 22nd of this year, so not even a month from now. And I can only imagine the finance staff, if we asked to send $20,000 or $30,000, you know, tomorrow, in order to do this. So, does anyone on staff have an idea of how this could possibly work, given the time frame that we have?
Mayor, I thought that was extended to May 24th.
Okay, still, it's a very short time frame, and spending $300,000 by the city of Greenbelt or by some consortium, including the city of Greenbelt, and the next 6 weeks. Just curious as to how they would do that.
That's a question for staff, sir, in terms of.
Yes, if there's been any discussion on this.
We have not discussed the mechanics of it, but the mechanics of it would be a budget amendment. You would have to take money from our unallocated reserves, and we would amend the budget by ordinance if the county or if the council wanted to contribute to this.
And that process, the introduction, et cetera, even as an emergency ordinance, would take
27 days.
Mm-hmm. So if we took this up on.
Oh, wait, no, sir, I misspoke, sir. As an emergency ordinance, it could be effective immediately. So you could introduce an ordinance 7 days later, adopt an ordinance, it becomes effective then. So within 2 weeks, we could move money if that was the desire of the council.
Okay. Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Okay, council comments.
Well, I think this gets to the ask of council to review the information about this and really, from that what their opinions are on this project. I know that what I've read of it and I've been following this now for a number of years is I do not think this is a good project for this area, and I do not think this is a good project for Prince George's County, and especially for municipalities like Greenbelt and others who are going to be adversely impacted by this project should it go forward. I think it's important that we support other municipalities in ways like this, because someday we may find ourselves in a very similar position. As to an amount,
Okay.
I'm not sure. I mean, that was one of my questions. What portion of $300,000 would we want to put forward?
Yeah, and has staff looked into the? So I'm looking at the list of recipients, and it doesn't list the affiliations of who got the CCs. Does town staff have any idea of the number of municipalities that have been approached in this way?
I do not, sir. We have not been contacted directly by any staff from Greenbelt. I'm not sure what's baked into their $300,000 cost. I don't know if that's what they believe they need over the next several weeks, or is this part of a fund for a longer fight? I think there's a lot of questions about where exactly the money would go. I mean, it mentions that it would be payment for these things, hiring a number of technical experts in the field. Would the council, if you were to approve some funds, would you want your funds to be restricted use? Are there certain things that you're willing to contribute funds for and certain things that you're not? I think those are questions that would have to be considered as well.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Other council members, any thoughts? Well, I guess my thought is that I can reach out to Mayor Byrd and perhaps a few members of the Greenbelt City Council and try to clarify at least a few of these points. And we can discuss it again next week. I'll see if I get some fairly quick answers from them on this topic. Does that sound reasonable? Just put it on the agenda for next week, and we'll see what I can figure out between now and then.
And on the staff level, sir, we can certainly reach out to the staff, but the communication came from elected to elected, so we didn't necessarily want to step in between there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll add that to my things to do this week.
Yeah, my thought is that they list 2 points on here that they're looking, that they're 2 objectives, and I think if we were to engage in this, I think we would qualify as that this is money for those objectives that they've put in their letter, and restricted to that. I think really the 2 that they said is going to be fairly comprehensive as they are.
Okay. Any more discussion of this? Any public comments?
The only other comment I would have, Mr. Mayor, depending on if the council wanted to move forward with this, as advanced notice as possible, just so staff can figure out the logistics.
I completely understand. I'm going to send an email note this evening before I go to sleep, and
And-
maybe even have a phone call. We'll see.
And I'll reach out to my counterpart as well, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate
I
that.
mean, I know I think we should move forward on this. Support them.
I think that that's a good idea if I feel like the amount we're spending is appropriate and bearable for us, and if I feel that the money will be effectively spent. And I just want to clarify those questions. But of course, the decision on this is up to the council and the budgetary process. So we'll see what happens. Okay, any other comments on this, or shall we move on to item 7? Hearing none, item 7, letter to the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, is that what WMATA stands for? Opposing the
Yes.
proposed closure of the College Park Metro stop.
Mr. Chelton.
Yes, good evening again. In its proposed 2022 budget, WMATA stated that it would have to close 22 metro stations due to low ridership numbers. Those metro stations include College Park, the Archives, and Mount Vernon along the Green Line. It's currently unclear whether or not stimulus funds from the pandemic will be enough to stave off the cuts. Earlier this month, the the College Park City Council unanimously agreed to send a letter to WMATA opposing the potential budget cuts that would close the metro station. There is a link to the WMATA proposed 2022 budget in the meeting material. And if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Council members?
The WMATA budget hearings are currently going on. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, my thought on this is that not only should they be keeping open College Park Metro, and I think they're also looking at cutting service for the 83 bus line as well. And that bus line runs essentially the entire length of the Route 1 corridor from the metro station in DC. It's the one near, gosh, name's escaping me right now. Rhode Island Avenue, Metro South. And right just north of the NOMA area along Rhode Island Avenue, up through to the Hollywood section of College Park, right there at the top of the Beltway. And it runs right up Route 1, which is all the municipalities along that way. And I see it as an important line to keep operating in that area. I think when you take away transit opportunities like that, it just makes things harder for individuals who are relying on buses to get from point A to point B.
Yes, my understanding that the cuts would eliminate bus route 86 and cause significant shortening of bus route 83.
Exactly.
Okay, other council members, thoughts, questions? I think that this should go on the agenda for next Monday.
I agree.
And so let's just do that and move forward. Are there public comments? Hearing none, hearing no other council comments.
Mr. Mayor, you have a hand
Yes.
raised by Laura Katz.
Well, I didn't see that, so thank you. Ms. Katz, please speak.
One of the disadvantages of virtual meetings, you got to click on this little teeny icon to say that you're here in 2 seconds. No, I'm glad the council, the mayor, that you're recommending the council look at it again. But I just have to voice, I'm blown away by this. I can't believe it. College Park is going to be a transfer point for the Purple Line. I understand that the resources are limited when it comes to finances, and the metro system is in dire straits. But both the bus and the bus as well, the bus and that stop, it just makes no sense to take that many steps backwards, especially with so much economic development going on in this area. I just read an article, a new 5-acre development right there by the hotel in College.
Yeah.
It's not strategic or future looking. It's maybe if it was temporary, because something has to give. I understand that. But for that to be a permanent strategic move for the system is just, I can't even imagine how you could think that way.
I believe it is a temporary step, but even as a temporary step, it's very short-sighted, because that is also the one area where you have a MARC stop next to a metro line in this area. So anyone, say, who's over in East Hyattsville, or pardon me, West Hyattsville, who would be wanting to try and get to a MARC station via metro, would then have to they're really at a loss. I believe that they would, they would be trying to find other ways to get to that MARC station there.
And with the support that you've now helped to garner for the MARC train and that particular line, I mean, these are all things that fit together strategically, and the increasing density that College Park is creating with all of this construction, it makes no sense, right, whatsoever. So I think there's actually a lot of facts. We were just talking, these are facts these are numbers that can be put together. Potential ridership in the future is fact-based, not conjecture, Thank you so much for, there's a lot of issues to take stands on right now, and I appreciate the council and the staff bringing to council's attention all of these things.
Things are definitely busy these days, no question. So,
Hey, but you can't close your eyes for a second.
No,
So
no.
appreciate y'all keeping your eyes open.
And Mr. Mayor, staff will work on drafting a letter to include in the packet for next week.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, and unless somebody else has raised their hand in the intermediate time, then let's move on to the request for support from Riverdale Elementary School. Item number 8.
Ms. Barnes.
Staff have recently received 2 requests from Riverdale Elementary School for donations for various projects. The first request is for $1,500 for supplies for their parent workshops and English classes. Some of the items that they need are some new books and flashcards and just overall supplies for that program. The fiscal year 2021 approved budget includes $650 for parent outreach. So that could be utilized, but the remaining balance of $850, if the mayor and council so choose, could possibly come from the undesignated social concerns line item. The second request that we received was, again, for $1,500, an additional $1,500 for monthly incentives for students through their PBIS program. So that's Positive Behavioral Intervention Supports Program. And the goal of PBIS is to increase student attendance and use of some educational tools like iRead, iReady, Dreambox, etc. Those programs all focus on reading and math skills. The staff at the elementary school have planned some different events. Some of the incentives that they were looking at are kites for celebration of National Kite Day, virtual snack and paint events, different types of things to just really keep the kids engaged and to encourage attendance and use of those tools that we just talked about. So just as a recap, the fiscal year 2021 approved budget included $10,000 for undesignated social concerns. And during the holiday season, the mayor and council authorized the use of $5,900 from that line item to support our Thanksgiving Food Baskets program and then the Riverdale Elementary Schools coat drive. We have a total of $4,100 in the undesignated social concerns line item. The total amount needed if the mayor and council chose to provide donations to the school for both of those items would be $2,350, and that would leave the mayor and council with a balance of $1,750 in the undesignated social concerns line item. So staff are seeking direction from the mayor and council with how to proceed with these requests.
Members of the council, thoughts?
I'd support it. The one thing that kind of I'm not very comfortable with is the one program they have. I mean, all the programs they have there saved for the the behavioral interventions. You know, the educational tools are fine, but you know, just cash for attending, I have an issue with that. If you want to get them tools, programs, events, things like that, you can see that, but just direct payout of money to be at school, I'm not comfortable with that.
Councilman Lingua, if I may add some additional details. The PBIS program exists, you know, whether or not the children are in school. As you're aware, the kids are mostly virtual, and the school has certainly seen lots of changes over this last school year related to COVID-19. I think the desire is to provide different kinds of incentives to encourage kids to be engaged. I can speak from my own experience that it's hard to keep kids engaged in a virtual format. And even now,
So am I reading this wrong?
I'm sorry?
Am I reading this wrong? It's not, there's not like direct cash payout, but it's through other incentives?
Correct. It's not through cash payouts. It's through different, for example, they have a prize cart that they put little toys and things like that, just to incentivize kids to participate in these programs. You know, school attendance is always difficult. So this is the kinds of things they're looking for. These are the extras.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, no, Councilman Lingo, I've worked at a PBIS school for 18 years, and it's just, it is looking for ways to incentivize positive behavior. It's just looking at discipline in a different asset or like, so this is, yeah, not direct cash payments. They'll use these for events, gift cards. I always like, I forget what it was called when I was growing up, but there was like this Book It program where, remember you go to Pizza Hut?
Yeah.
That was just, I mean, that led to my obesity in later life, but it certainly got me more literate, that's for sure. It's those kind of programs that they're looking to fund through that.
Okay.
These programs all give back. So one of the programs that makes me, Councilman Foe, you made me think of this. They're doing a program through Mod Pizza, and that made me, of course, think of the Book It program from back when we were in school. But The Mod Pizza program would be simply to encourage kids to read during Read Across America Day. I think it's a day or a month, but it's the same concept of providing different types of incentives to get that positive behavior that you're looking for.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so any other council feedback on this? Sounds like the council is, the members in attendance are mostly in support at least. Public comments? Okay, I say we should put this on the agenda for next week and assume that the council can make a final decision at that time. Okay, item number 9. I did ask for public comments, is that correct? Just making sure. Just making sure. Very important to do that. Let's go on to item number 9, repeal and replacement of resolutions regarding appointment of election judges and Board of Election Appeals members.
Good evening again, Mayor Thompson, members of the council and the public. As you'll recall, on February the 22nd, we adopted resolution 2021 R02 and 2021 R03 with the understanding that we would come back and fill in the vacancies. At this time, we do have an election judge for Ward 1. Councilmember Dixon provided that name. We still have vacancies for election judges in Wards 5 and 6. We also don't have any election judges that are alternates for this year. That might be incredibly important due to COVID-19. So we may want to consider that as well. We're in pretty good shape with the Board of Election Appeals. We actually have a name for Ward 4. So it's just Wards 5 and 6 that we're looking for volunteers to assist with. We have 3 volunteers that are not necessarily from the wards that we have the vacancies in, but they have been willing to help in any way with the election. So those are some options that we have available to us as we move forward. But it would be ideal to have all these appointments done next week on April the 5th, because we'll need folks in place in order to review the candidate packets on April the 8th. So it's a little bit of a tight time frame, but I think we can make that happen.
Thank you. I was actually communicating with Councilmember Mayers over the weekend about the Ward 6. She had been unable to find someone, and I have a few people I'll be reaching out to who were actually found by Councilmember Foe, not out of Ward 6, but from other wards. And I think we can fill most of these slots, certainly the election judge slots next week. So I will press forward on those communications. I have not been able to speak to Councilmember Richardson about the Ward 5 slot, but I'll try to get in touch with her in the next few days. So thank you for the reminder. Any additional any council or public comments on this? Okay, let's move on to the next item, town election update, item 10.
Good evening again, Mayor Thompson, members of the council, members of the community. I just wanted to provide a quick update on the preparations for the May 3rd election. The town election team, so our chief election judge, deputy chief election judge, and your town clerk have been really busy over the last few weeks and focused really on communication and accessibility as they relate to the upcoming election. And I just wanted to share with you some of the things that are in place right now. With regard to communication, information has been included in every edition of the town crier since February. So the notice of the election, which has been translated into English and in Spanish, is available on the town's website, cable channel, and social media platforms. We have a social media campaign that's ongoing. You may have seen some of the posts recently, and we're going to be continuing that throughout the coming weeks. So in addition to our regular communication methods, we've put the election notices, the official election notices in the April farmers market dollar mailing. So it gets into the hands of approximately 250 families. They have been mailed to all voters on the town's supplemental voter registry. They've also been placed in the food boxes that have been distributed by Riverdale Elementary School. So we're working really hard to get the information about the election out in every way possible. The Prince George's County Board of Elections will be mailing postcards to all registered voters in the coming weeks. In fact, I just received the invoice today and the template, so those will be going out very soon. The town's electronic signboard is displaying an electronic message, an election-related message in English and Spanish. And it'll be spending approximately 1 week in each ward over the next 6 weeks. And again, I mentioned earlier, the target is social media posts in English and in Spanish that have been planned for the rest of the weeks leading up to the election. Another focus has been accessibility. It's been a focus not just of our discussions about the election, but even our discussions about the virtual meetings that we talked about earlier in the agenda. So all the election-related documents are available in English and in Spanish. So our official election notice, the absentee mail-in ballot application, the supplemental voter registry applications, all promotional materials, and social media posts, as well as new this year, the text on the ballots will actually be in English and in Spanish. A Spanish language translator will be on site on May the 3rd to assist election judges with communicating with our residents. And I would be remiss without mentioning the translator and the translations have been done through the University of Maryland. We have a great relationship and they've done a fantastic job this year working with us. We've installed a document holder in front of Town Hall that holds voter registration forms, candidate packets, and absentee mail-in ballot applications. So for folks who may not have access to the internet, those forms are available just as they would be if Town Hall was open, probably more so because they're available 24/7 right now. We have received and set up the new election booths, and one of those election booths is ADA compliant. So those are currently assembled in the council chambers. And we've been reaching out to Crescent City Center to arrange for voting for residents living in the facility. So those have been some of the main items that we've been working on. We also have, I know I'm very excited about the ballot box, but the ballot box has been installed at Town Hall. I have tried not to take a million posters or pictures and share it on Facebook and things like that, but it's really cool. And we're using it to receive, just like the mayor mentioned earlier, we're receiving all election related materials through the ballot box. So not just the mail-in absentee ballots, but for now, we can receive the actual applications for the mail-in ballots. We can also receive the candidate packets. So everything related to the election, we're using the ballot box for that as well. So in the coming weeks, the town election team will be really working on logistics for the on-site voting. We've had a pretty nice turnout or request rather for absentee mail-in ballots. In the past, we've had maybe 1 or 2 or maybe up till 10. I'm hoping to see that number grow as folks receive their April town crier and they actually have the application right in front of them. But the interaction between your election team and the residents has been really great this year with the creation of the town election email address. We've had a lot of feedback and a lot of conversations about all sorts of things related to the election. But again, we're looking to make this a safe voting experience. We're looking to have the word out in every way possible and make this as accessible as possible for all of our residents. And those are some of the things that we have covered over the last couple of weeks. I did hear from the chief election judge today and she said, oh, we're a month out. So we're not far from the finish line and your team is working very hard to make this happen in unusual circumstances. So thank you for the opportunity to update the council on this.
You're muted, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes. Director Barnes, you've been very busy over the last several weeks, I can tell. There's a lot going on here. Everything sounds good. There's one question I had. You mentioned that Prince George's County would be sending reminder postcards to all registered voters. Will the town be sending postcards to those who are registered on our voter rolls?
So we did send, we sent a memo with some information about the upcoming election. We also sent in that packet the official election notice, English and in Spanish, and an absentee ballot application. So they received a special packet from us. They should be received, I'm thinking, early this week. But I'm expecting, we have had our first pre-registered voter for our supplemental voter registry. In 2019, everybody registered on the same day. So this is pretty exciting to have one that pre-registered, and I'm expecting a handful more tomorrow, by the way. So that is positive news for us.
Okay, very good. Are there other questions from other members of the council? Any public comments or questions? Okay, well, I would like to.
Mr. Mayor, I was on mute. I
know the problem.
I had an election judge asking me when they were going to be contacted by the chief judge, and was asking about meetings,
Councilman
things of
Lingua,
that nature.
yes, we reached out to that election judge today to
Great.
let them know that we have a timeline in place. So I will be meeting this week with the chief and deputy chief, and we'll be sketching out what the next couple of weeks will look like with regard to election judges. And then we'll be getting that information out to everyone as soon as possible.
Just to let you know, Mr. Lingua, Councilman Lingua, I reached out to the chief election judge. I believe on Saturday morning, I ran into her and passed on your request from that election judge, and she addressed it as quickly as she could.
Well, that's great. I also heard from the appeals judge too. Was wondering, had the same question. So.
Okay.
I think we'll go ahead and do some outreach once all of the full slate of election judges is in place. And we'll make sure to send some emails or letters or reach out to everyone so that they know what they need to do in the next few weeks moving forward.
I'm very glad that we are working so hard on informing people of the election and making it easier and more equitable for them to have access to the polls. So this is all fantastic news. Thank you. Okay, shall we move on to the next item on the agenda? Are there any public comments? Okay, next item on the agenda is the minutes. As is always true, if you find any issues in the minutes, please reach out to Director Barnes and let her know. And that brings us to new business. Are there any items of new business? Everyone had a chance to unmute? Okay. Are there any items of unfinished business? Okay, I think that we have reached the end of the meeting, and I at least can go have some dinner now. And
Thank you, everyone.
Hope everyone has a pleasant rest of their evening and week, and I'll see everyone next Monday. Take care.
Take care,
Take
Mr.
care,
Mayor.
everybody. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Take care.